Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing another meal prep video for you. So I'm going to do a couple of lunches. I'm going to do a side dish or like a side item and also a yummy dessert. So if you want to see how I turn all of this into all of this, then keep on watching. First thing we're going to make is going to be some cheddar garlic drop biscuits. These are low carb, they're yummy, and you won't believe how easy they are. I'll be having this as a side dish to a dinner and a lunch this week. In a bowl, we're going to put in 1.5 cups of almond flour. I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of baking powder and some salt. And then you're just going to kind of whisk this all together, and we will set this aside and work on the wet ingredients. For the wet ingredients, you're going to need 2 eggs, a 1/4 cup of sour cream, and 4 tablespoons of butter that's been melted but cooled. You don't want to, of course, add the hot butter to the egg mixture because it will kind of curdle the eggs and the sour cream. So what I usually do is I put the eggs and the sour cream together first. I give that a good whisk. Sometimes it's hard to get that sour cream to incorporate, but just keep whisking the heck out of it. Eventually, it'll look nice and incorporated. And then in the meantime, your butter's cooling and you want to go ahead and add in that butter and then whisk that all together. And then we're going to add our wet ingredients to our dry. So once you add all that in there, you just want to give that a good stir and just get everything all nice and mixed up. And you're going to notice the texture of these, they're a little bit kind of, I don't know how else to explain it besides it's like airy and kind of foamy feeling, especially after you let it sit. So once you get this mixture all together like this is the base biscuit mixture. So if you want just regular drop biscuits and nothing else, this right here would be it. Let it sit for 5 minutes before you put it in your pan, and then you have regular drop biscuits. But I am going to make a cheddar garlic version, and so I'm going to be adding more ingredients. But what you would do from here, if you don't want to add anything else, just let this mixture sit for 5 minutes, let that all the almond flour and everything, the baking powder, start to work, and then you would bake them off the same way. But like I said, I am going to be doing something a little bit different, so I'm adding in a 1/2 cup of shredded Colby Jack. I'm going to add in some chives. I don't measure my spices, as you guys know, for the most part. So I have some dried chives here, so I'm going to put some chives in there, and then I'm just going to sprinkle in some onion powder and some garlic powder. And then I'm going to mix that up, and I will let this mixture sit for just about 5 minutes or so. It just really helps get everything all nice and airy. You'll notice that your biscuits will be a lot airier if you do that. This is my favorite pan to use for these. This is a Pampered Chef brownie pan, but you can use a cupcake pan. You can actually drop these onto a cookie sheet as long as it just is greased or lined with parchment paper or a Silpat, something like that. But I just love to use this pan. They come out perfect. And this recipe makes 8 biscuits. And these biscuits are so good. Like I said, they're good for a side dish. If you want to make them a little bit bigger, you could use them as like a breakfast sandwich. That would also work. You'd want to make them probably a little bit bigger for that. So I'm going to continue putting all these into the pan, and these are going to go into a 400-degree oven for 10 to 12 minutes, and you'll know when they're done because it'll be nice and brown and toasty, and they will look like this. These biscuits are perfection. You won't even notice that they're low carb. To me, they don't taste really strong almond flour, but that is just my opinion. So, of course, everybody's different. So I'm going to put these into a Ziploc bag and store them in the refrigerator. I just prefer to do them that way. Next up are my peanut butter Twix bars. Okay, I did have some issues with these. We'll go over that at the end, but these taste amazing, fantastic, huge hit. Highly recommend. Let's get into it. The first part we're going to make is going to be the cookie layer. So in the cookie layer, we need 1.5 cups of almond flour that you packed. So we want packed almond flour. We're going to put in there 3 tablespoons of melted cooled coconut oil. Going to do a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of Lakanto maple syrup, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So you're going to put all of this stuff in here. Now, if you don't have the Lakanto maple syrup, that's fine. Just any sort of sugar-free maple syrup that you have, go ahead and put it in there. This part, you just need something a little bit liquidy. If you don't even have that, you want to use regular, like granulated or powdered sweetener, you can do that. Just add a little bit of water or something. So we're going to stir this up with a fork because it's going to be a really crumbly mixture. So you want to just stir it up and you want to get those crumbles. Just get everything all coated with all those ingredients. And when you get done, you're going to have this nice crumbly mixture. Your mixture should look like this, and if you touch it, you can feel the moisture in it, so we'll be able to press it into our pan. So this original recipe calls for an 8x8 pan, but I have this kind of longer, skinny pan, so I'm going to use this one. So you want to line it with parchment paper. So you want to take your mixture, your cookie mixture here, and you want to go ahead and pour it in there, and then you're going to press it. You have to be a little patient with this because it does take a little bit of work to get it out, but you want to make sure your crust is as even as possible, and you want to make sure that you get, you want to make sure that it's all flat, and it just took a little bit of work to do, but I finally got it. But it does take a little bit of time, so just be patient. Just keep working it out the middle, and you'll have some holes, but just fill in those holes. But be patient and you'll get this. And then this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for 10 minutes. Then you're going to let it cool completely before we do anything else with it. Don't start your peanut butter layer until your crust is already out of the oven and cooling. So I had my crust in the freezer because I'm impatient. So for your peanut butter layer, we're going to add in 2/3 of a cup of really kind of runny natural peanut butter. If you use the natural peanut butter, it tends to be runnier, so highly recommend that. I'm using the Crazy Richards peanut butter. It's the perfect consistency for this. And then you're going to put in a 1/4 cup of coconut oil. In this case, it doesn't have to be melted. We're going to do 1/3 of a cup of some sort of sugar-free sweetener. I'm using the monk fruit sweetener from Canto. And then you're going to do some vanilla and some salt. So you want about a teaspoon of vanilla and then just like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And once you get that in there, you're going to whisk it up, and then you're going to let this cook. Now you have to be kind of careful when you're mixing up. You want to kind of bring it to like just to the beginning of a boil, and then you're going to simmer it just until like the sugars and the coconut oil get all incorporated in there. And here is what my mixture looked like when it was all ready to go and be poured onto the crust. So let me go ahead and pull the crust out of the freezer, and we'll do the next step. Here is my cooled crust. So now we're going to go ahead and take that peanut butter layer, and you're just going to pour it on there and just spread it all out. So just take the entire thing. Don't worry about, kind of going over the edge. We're going to put this into the refrigerator also. So once you get it all spread out, this is going to go into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. Again, I put mine in the freezer just to speed up the process, but you can put it in the refrigerator too. But I put mine in the freezer for about 15 minutes. The last layer is going to be our chocolate layer. I have 3/4 of a cup of the sugar-free chocolate chips and a tablespoon of coconut oil. I went ahead and melted this in the microwave until you get this consistency. So once your peanut butter layer has cooled completely, you're going to pour your chocolate in there. So I just put my chocolate in the microwave for 30-second increments and just stir until you get this nice creamy texture. So you want to get that chocolate on there and just spread it all over it till it covers the top. And this is going to go in the refrigerator or the freezer, again, for at least 20 minutes. I put it in the freezer because I was pretty much done with my meal prep at this point, and so I wanted to get it done. But I went ahead and put this in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and then it came out looking like this. So I went ahead and pull it off the pan so I can see what it looks like and start cutting them. Here's where my downfall was. It was pretty frozen. I had left it in there longer than I wanted to, and so I'm scoring the top, and I'm thinking, okay, it'll be okay. I thought it would be better if I cut it while frozen. Well, no, it started to break up after I cut it, and I think it's because they froze. So my plan was to try to get 12 bars out of this, and I ended up getting 10 across the top across this, but they were so big that I went ahead and just cut them. I was going to cut them in half anyway, but as you can see, when I start to cut them, they do start to break. So, they're not perfect, you guys, but nothing I make on here is perfect. I am just a regular person. But let me tell you, this is the one that came out like really well. Look at those layers. This is absolutely amazing. It tastes good. It tastes like you're eating a candy bar, and it's just the minimum of the amount of carbs. So good. Highly recommend you guys make it. Just because mine doesn't look that pretty, maybe yours will come out a lot prettier than mine. But I am thinking, I know there's like candy bar molds out there that you can buy, and I'm thinking about maybe getting those next time and trying those out. But this is, I highly, highly recommend this recipe. I will write it all out down below in the description box. For one of my lunches this week, I'm having chicken Philly cheesesteak bowls. Look at these. It looks so good. It's steaming. It looks so good. Okay, we're going to start off with the chicken part. So I'm going to take these chicken tenders that I have, and I'm going to cut them into long, thin slices. So I'm just going to take all of these, just cut them up. You could also do them in little chunks too, like little like nuggets also. But for me, I like the long, thin strips because they cook really fast, and I just think they taste really good that way. Once the chicken is all cut up, you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And then we're also going to add in some of this seasoning. So you can also, if you don't have this seasoning, this is a seasoning that I found at Walmart a couple weeks ago, the Himalayan pink salt, black pepper, and garlic. But you can also just use garlic powder, salt, pepper, and onion powder. So I did add in some onion powder, and then I'm adding in some of this. And I'm just going to mix that around. I'm going to let that marinate while I get the rest of the ingredients together. I'm going to cut up this red bell pepper into little chunks. You can do strips, you can do chunks, however you want to do it. I'm just cutting mine into just pretty big pieces because it will cook down, and I do like big chunks of bell pepper. Typically, you would use a green bell pepper with Philly steak, but I do like red bell pepper, and it's what I had. I actually forgot to buy a green bell pepper this week, but I had 2 red bell peppers, so hey, this worked out perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and dice this up. I have my skillet here for my chicken. I'm just going to add in a little bit of avocado oil, heat up my pan. Now I'm just adding my chicken to my hot skillet. I'm just going to brown all this up. It doesn't take very long because they're really thin strips, so it just takes a few minutes on each side. And because of the Worcestershire sauce, it comes out this nice like caramel brown color. It is so good. I love to use the Worcestershire sauce for a marinade. It is so good. So I'm just going to continue cooking up my chicken, and then we're going to pull it out when it's all done. I'm going to add a little bit more oil before I add in my peppers and onions. So I'm putting in my bell pepper to the same pan that I had the chicken in. No reason to dirty up another pan. And then I'm also going to add in a 1/2 cup of frozen onion that I have. You just want to continue cooking that until it's all nice and softened. I did add in a little bit of sea salt to that, and I'm just going to stir that around until everything is nice and softened to my desired level. And then we're going to add our chicken back in. Just add your chicken back in here and just go and toss it all together, and then it's time to fill up the meal prep containers. So I'm just going to portion this out among all the meal prep containers until they are all full. Yes, I should be weighing and measuring this stuff out. I know. But mostly this is, besides the vegetables, it's mostly low carb anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. So I'm just going to get it as even as I can between the 3 different meal prep containers. And then I'm going to put 1 slice of provolone cheese on top of each bowl. It'll start to melt a little bit because it is kind of hot, but once I heat it up to have for lunch, it'll get it nice and melty for me. So this is one of my lunches this week. For one of my dinners this week, I'm going to be having a wedge salad for a side dish, and I like to have blue cheese dressing on those wedge salads. So I'm going to show you how I make my homemade blue cheese dressing. This is a 1/2 batch, by the way. This is just a 1/2 of the recipe because you saw how much it made. That's why I did not do a full recipe. So we want into our bowl here a 1/2 cup of sour cream. We're going to do a 1/4 cup of mayo, 1½ tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, 1½ teaspoons of red wine vinegar, and then the spices is going to be some garlic powder, salt, pepper, and then I like to put some chives in there as well, and then 2 ounces of blue cheese crumbles. Once you have everything in there, just whisk it all together and then pour it into a mason jar or some kind of nice, sealed container you can keep in the refrigerator. And you saw, like I said, you saw how much this made. It made a lot. So this was the 1/2 batch. This is a yummy, it has none of those preservatives or additives in there. It's a great salad dressing. For another lunch this week, I'm going to be doing Big Mac salads. So I wanted to do just a couple components of it. The rest of it's pretty easy to throw together. So first off, the ground beef. I just want to get this all cooked up so it's all ready to go. I'm adding in this Montreal steak seasoning to this. I just think makes it taste more like a burger taste to me when I put this in there. So I'm going to go ahead and cook up this ground beef, and then we'll make the Big Mac sauce. For the Big Mac sauce, we are going to need a half of a cup of mayo, 2 tablespoons of pickle relish. I just have this kind from Walmart, the Great Value brand. 1 tablespoon of sugar-free ketchup. I just use this one from Heinz, but there's several different sugar-free ketchups out there to use. A half a teaspoon of mustard, and then we're going to put some garlic powder, onion powder, and salt in there. And then also for a little bit, just to cut the vinegar taste of both we have a lot of acid in here with the pickle relish, the ketchup, and the mustard. So I want to add a little bit of sweetener in there. So I have this liquid stevia sweetener from Walmart. I'm just going to squirt in a little bit of that, probably about 1/4 teaspoon, and then just whisk this all together, and you have your Big Mac sauce. So when I put these salads together, they are going to be just a bed of lettuce. You're going to have your ground beef. We're going to add some pickles in there. You can add sesame seeds if you would like, and then the dressing on top, and a little bit of cheddar cheese, and you have a yummy Big Mac salad. As always, I will have everything linked down below, and thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.